I'm Mick Garris, and this is an excerpt from my novella, Ugly. I locked the Skagletty with a chirp and headed to the elevator before I noticed the dollop of bird shit right above the windscreen. That stuff will eat right through the lacquer given half a chance, so I poured some Fiji water on it, whipped off my jacket, and polished it away with my shirt sleeve before the chemical action had a chance to work its evil. A $400 Mr. Alex shirt is a small sacrifice when it comes to saving the finish on a $300,000 Ferrari. I always carried a spare set of clothes in the car, just in case I wouldn't be making it home to Point Doom on any given night. So I stripped off the shirt, allowing the cool late morning breeze to caress me for a moment before I replaced it. As I slid the clean shirt off its hanger, I noticed I was being watched by a dark-haired woman in a 2-year-old Mercedes S550 that just pulled into the garage opposite me. She made no move to exit her car, just settled behind the wheel and her gold Chopard shades, watching me as if I were performing a private striptease for her. And perhaps I was. I had just come from the gym, so I was freshly showered and newly pumped and tanned, and I must say, I was glowing. I'd had my chest waxed on Monday, so I was feeling in my prime, and consciously ignored her as I took my time changing shirts and tucking the tails deep into my low-rise Vicuna Brioni trousers. I knotted my tie anew, slid into my jacket, and sneaked a look as she finally got out of her car and headed to the elevator. I don't know why I hadn't recognized her early, as she was a client. Evelyn Kilbourne, née Carlton, née Fassenden, née Carp, serial wife of the rich and famous. I had restructured a botched Brazilian butt lift and done her eyes a couple Christmases ago. She looked good, too, her recently freshened breasts free-floating under a loose salmon silk chemise. Had to be 42, but looked no more than 35. She smiled at me, and nary a crease marred her perfect visage. She was beautiful. The elevator dinged its arrival, and I gallantly ushered her inside first. "Which floor?" I asked. "Yours," she replied, with a smile that would have been coquettish in a 22-year-old. "I'm scheduled for appeal today." "Of course." I looked at her creamy complexion. "Take off your glasses," I said. She obeyed, of course. Being a doctor empowers you in ways civilians cannot imagine. "You're early for appeal. Your skin is perfect. Don't overdo it or you're going to lose elasticity." "Seriously?" "Seriously." I reached out and stroked her face, and I could swear I heard a soft moan. "You have beautiful skin. Don't abuse it." "Thank you, doctor." It grew even more beautiful when she blushed. I find blushes charming. "Warren," I corrected her. "You and I are way past the doctor stage." I could practically smell her arousal and sense the clenching of her thighs. "Just ask Jessica for some Guerlain Orchidee while you're here, and then make an appointment in 3 months or so." "You're sure?" she asked. "Positive," I answered. "Well," she said, "you know best." "Yes, I do." Right on cue, the elevator reached the penthouse floor with a soft ding, and we both stepped past the subtle little brass Perfected Nature Clinic sign and into the lobby of my domain. It was filled with morning light, Rodeo Drive and Wilshire Boulevard laid out in a golden triangle beyond us. I placed my hand against her back, bare beneath the silk blouse, and guided her to Jessica at reception, plucked my iced soy chai latte from Arena, checked the calendar, and headed back to my inner sanctum. On my way, I heard Evelyn ask Jessica for a parking validation and shook my head. If you can't afford to pay for parking, then find another surgical esthetician. Besides, I own the parking structure. I entered the office and took a seat behind the teak table, buzzed through a half-dozen emails, and checked my news feed, which offered nothing of interest. I shot my usual morning office arrival pic and posted it, then flipped the MacBook closed and turned on the music as I sipped my chai. The office was at a steady 68 degrees, as always, despite the swelter of the Beverly Hills summer. Irena tapped gently on the door before she entered. She was quite lovely, if not perfect. Her natural blonde hair was a bit wind-tousled and hung down to the center of her back. Her lips were a bit on the thinnish side, but not so much that they needed plumping. Her eyes were of different colors, one green and the other blue, a remarkable example of heterochromia, but it worked quite agreeably on her. She needed just a touch of rhino shaping that we were already discussing, and it wouldn't be long before a mini brow lift was in order, but she was holding up pretty well for her mid-30s. The Eastern European accent was frosting on the cupcake, but in truth, she just lies there, expecting pleasure, not really offering it. Our fling was brief and eventless, and she had settled into employee servitude rather gracefully and without drama. I saw the board, but give me the highlights for children, I said. She glanced up at me with a brief gaze I considered wistful, then ran down the day's work. A mastopexy to begin with at 11, a couple of peels after lunch, otoplasty on your actress friend at 3, then a phalloplasty to finish the day. Nothing like a little phalloplasty to finish the day. Enlargement? Oh God, no, just aesthetic shaping. Eric Hardy. Vivid is sending him over. Right, fine. I'm a little concerned about starting the day with a mastopexy, though. I'd rather have begun the day with the peels than work up to the surgeries. Of course, she said, unwilling to be chastened. But this was the last minute, and you had an opening, and she is paying a premium. Irena understands how the game is played, which is why I keep her around. She's good at this. But we will have to get that nose perfected sooner rather than later. It reflects badly for clients to see someone working here who is less than flawless. And it distracts me. Great. Thanks, Irena. She accepted her dismissal with a smile and left a wafting breeze of Caro's poivre in her wake. I breathed deep of her wake, downed the dregs of my latte, and went in to scrub up for the day's first procedure. Keep the stitches tight and tiny, that's my secret. Vitamin E is bullshit when it comes to erasing scars. Just keep from keloid scarring in the first place. Don't plunge into the flesh like a butcher. Put the pieces together with care and precision, and you can assemble the parts with perfection. There are various emollients that will keep the skin supple and vibrant, but it's the cutting and an angle to overlap the pieces together when it's time to suture them that's important. I can and will sell you very expensive creams that will be good for your skin, but it's the deftness of the surgeon and the creativity of his blade that makes the difference. They come out from under my knife better than any higher power could create. He makes them human. I make them perfect. The first patient of the day was a case in point. Haley Weathers was 26 and had already birthed a couple of babies. Obviously, that's none of my business, but if you're going to have babies, don't expect to be perfect. Your belly will stretch and your breasts will enlarge, leaving loose skin and drooping flesh behind. I'm just saying. But she wanted a litter, and like I said, that's none of my business, though it certainly does contribute to my business. Being so young, the ravages of childbirth had left her in surprisingly good shape. She'd obviously been keeping up a regimen at the gym, so her tummy looked good. But the breasts were deflated and hung low on her chest. They needed a boost, and they needed it now. Now, there's not a lot you can do about the stretch marks, but I could make them pert again. I mean, Photoshop is fine, but not if you want to do the talk show circuit. HD cameras are merciless. And they'd been nice breasts, to be honest, and size was certainly not an issue. We didn't need to enhance them, so there would be no implantation going on. But the lift itself could bring her back to the catwalk, even in the nude with the right amount of body makeup. She had been a beautiful young woman, but with these bags on her chest, well, it was hard for me to take. It made her downright ugly. I was able to lift and define them with very little sculpture, actually. Within about 80 minutes, they had become 26-year-old breasts again, saluting at full attention, beautiful and perfect all over. I smiled as I checked out my handiwork. some tweaking, a little gravity defiance, and in a couple of hours I'd just clocked in another $17,000. And it was just the first procedure of the day. Fuck James Cameron. I'm the fucking king of the world. It's my job to make the world more beautiful, more aesthetically pleasing, to take what nature provides and make it better, to stave off the ravages of illness, age, and gutter luck, to take a giant rock and turn it into a beautiful sculpture. Beauty is not just a matter of taste either, no matter what the unattractive may say. Symmetry, color, smoothness, and shape are not subjective. They've done all kinds of tests to prove it. Give little babies a choice between beautiful faces and ugly ones, and they'll choose the pretty ones every time. It's science. I went into my bathroom to wash up after the surgery and looked at my own face in the mirror. Nature had been generous to me. The symmetry had been laid out as if on an artist's grid. If you held a mirror to the middle of my face, as I have done on numerous occasions, it would look the same as it does on its own. The pores on my nose had been a bit generous, but it wasn't difficult to shrink them with a simple combination of astringents. The nose itself was noble and sturdy, and I was blessed with a full head of nearly blue-black hair as well. I let it grow long to give me the look of an artist. Some might call it my fuck you haircut. My eyes were an even blue, the color you would choose if you were looking for tinted lenses. When I smiled, I had dimples, but no laugh lines. My eyes might crinkle a bit in laughter, but there were no crow's feet. It would be a good few years before I would have to do anything about them. But I'd been keeping an eye on one area of concern. 2 very light lines seemed to be crossing my forehead. I had to nip that in the bud, so I got the syringe and a bottle of Botox and made the injections then and there. I massaged my forehead, applied a light dusting of a custom powder I'd had made that was a perfect match to my tanned summer skin, and I was ready for the rest of my day. I'm proud of what I do, and the world is a much better place because of it. At the middle of the day, I decided to walk a couple of blocks to the grill on the alley for lunch. It was a noisy, active place that was filled with an older Beverly Hills crowd, Hollywood agents and their beautiful clients, and I enjoyed the energy and the buzz of the room. There would be a fair share of tourists there as well, but Beverly Hills tourists are a slightly higher caliber than the ones in Hollywood, and they'd settle for the tables off in the hinterlands where no one would have to see them when they ate. Fortunately, inhabitants of the flyover states seem prone to eating with their hands. So I settled into my usual booth and ordered the John Dory and a vodka Arnold Palmer. I sopped up the bread in a puddle of olive oil and burned through my texts and emails on my iPad when Randy Setwell marched right up and slid tightly into the snug booth, snagging the tablecloth with him and yanking it away as he sat down. He apologized and fumbled to put everything in place before one of the attentive busboys took the job in hand and smoothed it all over in seconds. Randy was embarrassingly overweight, and his face was flushed and sweaty, not just now, but all the time. His chipmunk cheeks and weak chin were forested by a formless graying beard, and his thick horn-rimmed glasses shrank his violet eyes into beads behind them. He reached his hand out to shake mine, knocking over the water glass in the process. The busboy, who was keeping a careful eye out for just such an incident, was quick to mop it up. I couldn't avoid shaking Randy's hand, and it was soft and moist. It was hard to keep my gorge down, but I did my best to be civil with him. Part of my future may well rest in his hands, but I did hope that he'd finish before they brought my food. "Hey, Warren, I was hoping I'd run into you," he exclaimed. He seemed only to speak in exclamations. "And bingo! Wish granted," I said. "You have 2 more. "I'm keeping those a secret," he riposted. I didn't give a shit. "What's up, Randy? Any news?" Randy had produced our pilot, The Knife, a reality show that followed me around and recorded my life. "Bravo is close," he exclaimed. "If we can make the numbers work, I think we're home. E wants a shot, but I don't think they can come up with the dollars." "That is good news," I said. We'd shot it at least 6 months ago, and I just assumed that it had died the ignoble death that the previous 4 pilots centered on me had succumbed to. There's one thing I think would really push it over for them, he said, leaning in closer, as if we were friends or something. What's that? A name. If we could shoot a procedure with one of your celebrity clients, then I think we're there. If I shot a procedure on one of my celebrity clients, they would no longer be one of my celebrity clients. You'd think that was obvious. It doesn't have to be someone in their prime, you know. They like washed-up TV stars. It's even better if their lives are already humiliating. You know, get a David Hasselhoff to get pec implants or something, and they eat that shit up. Somebody like him would piss on his own mother to get back on TV. I don't know, Randy. My business is a bit more, well, refined than that. It might be the difference between your own television series and no television series. I've driven this highway before, Randy. The clinic grossed $17 million last year. I don't need a TV show. You get this show and you'll gross double that next year. It gave me pause. Double? Dr. Beverly Hills doubled his clinic's gross in the first year after he went to air. Shit. No shit. He grinned. There was spinach between his teeth, which were widely gapped. Braces, bleaching, and bonding would get him started. Just think about it, would you? He said. Suzanne Summers butt lift, Kirstie Alley lipo, Tara Reid boob job, Bridget Nielsen facelift, Steven Seagal penile implant. That's great fucking television, he was exclaiming again. I was fast losing my appetite. His entire body was quaking in excitement from his man titties, which were doing their best to hide the huge swaths of sweat under his armpits, all the way to his belt, which was straining against the earthquake of his belly. Spittle was collecting in his beard. You're putting me off my lunch, I said. Not all of them, he assured me. But if you get just one, it's a home run. Just promise me you'll think about it, okay? They're going to want an answer by Monday. Okay, I said, anything to get him to leave the table. Promise? Pinky swear? I promise, I promised. He left, a shit-eating grin devouring his face. I thought about it, then I was done thinking about it. No fucking way. Not unless they finance the whole season up front. At that moment, Eric appeared with my John Dory. I took a big gulp of the vodka Palmer and stared at the fish and broccoli trunk. I couldn't eat it. Looking at ugly people makes me literally nauseous. Randy's grotesquerie actually pissed me off. I mean, we all have a choice about the flesh sheaths we wear. I couldn't understand he could allow that pork rind jacket of fat to keep building up around him, squishy and sweaty and smelly, despite the antiperspirant. Unkempt hair, grody fingernails, thick glasses. I found it hard to be around those so lacking in pride that they polluted their surroundings with their presence. Get on the fucking treadmill, lay off the breakfast burritos, get some LASIK and manscaping, and you might improve your life, if not mine. I realized I was starting to growl, and I was not about to let this producer poison my day. I had to get the fuck out of there and breathe. All right, I think that's enough. That's the beginning of my novella, Ugly. Thanks.